Yeah. So,
Okay, I'm recording now.
okay, so that's something to think about of how these
So,
things are stored and shared.
yeah, so welcome to week 2 of book club. I was looking at uh, this is track 4, the 200 books a year, and we're in week 2. Week 1 in 200 books a year included all 3 books from the other 3 tracks: Atomic Habits, Who Moved My Cheese, and Flying Lead Change. And then I spoke about A Promised Land by Barack Obama last week. Now we're in week 2, and this is a whole new series of books. Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle, Breath by James Neff, and The Vulnerability by A. Brown. What book?
Talk about the ability to notes into it and the ones I've got. However, I just thought Atomic Habits. You got your son?
So I was good. So that would be
Okay, but I want to hear you Ian's first.
First started why not like people all these really what are the sweat leader? Well, because be a leader, and I had studied and painful audio everything. Okay, I see 100 books a year. Good enough for my own audio your own. So it the regular speed it at and rated 1.2 or too much. But the book has you actually need you're listening 1 or 2 days just about. But if you're doing laundry, it's so the story of the 200 birds was one of the first books.
And was it on your list?
I had it and I had to get it. And I had hikers between waiting, or whatever, and started reading it. And I watched him, and he's like flipping pages, flips like, really great book. I would put it in the pen. I haven't started. I felt embarrassed. And then he's like, I want to finish it. He asked me if he could buy it from me, and I was sure. I looked at the price and I said, "That's," and he whatever 16 it was, cash in my pocket. He left Sapiens, and then after the next on Audible, so there was Sapiens. It was on Audible, and it was absolutely fabulous. Tell you the truth, I had this like much. This is like Sapiens Homo, and as I said, Sapiens, I am meeting Homo days, and says reading thing. The New York Times, this guy. So that's him in the back. It's like, oh, that's the guy. Somehow I imagine him being older, but he's a young dude. And the other nice about this copy is the pages like smooth and so people like to feel paper. Also cool illustrated all throughout. I knew it would spark great dinner. It didn't disappoint. This book, someone interested, fun, look at early human history. When does early human be ever fun and engaging? But it is. It tells a history. One finally back book. Financial Times was me. It is thrilling to he's the prison in old and look at the world in ways, providing feels on what we knew. The result is scintillating. And these comments, not exaggerated by any means, they are spot on. Guardian says finding. Very intelligent, full of sharp insight and mordant wit. It is a cool book with a sliver of ice at its heart. It is to imagine anyone would read this book with an occasional vertiginous setting out, coming out of depression and saying, I don't want to say, give me for else can I think I'll read 200. Yeah. It's hard to imagine you could read this book with an occasional vertiginous in a good way. Vertigo in a good way. Day follows you. Will entertain you, make you things you have not before. And those comments are actually spawn about these are in my stand on essential moments. You who says after that, I feel like I don't.
Exactly.
Sorry, but just I want to share a little from this chapter 18. Permanent revolution. The Industrial Revolution opened ways to convert energy, produce the gas, rivers, plains, laid down hundreds of thousands of railroad tracks, and built metropolises. As the world was molded, the needs of humans, how destroyed species went, our once green planet is becoming concrete and shopping. Today, the Earth's homes of one of the says is the point that we are, when you have genus species, Homo is the genus, Sapiens is the species, right? We are the only single species in a genus on the planet, the only one. If you think about canine, equine, right? If you think about multiple species, we are a single species, somehow managed the list successful strategies for survival as a species has been so that we basically over the point, because now we're faced with global warming, we're over there even. Got that Ishmael, I think his name is Daniel, and I think I'm going to put that on our books list. Today's continents, billions of sapiens. We took all a large set of cells, 300 million tons. If you think all our domestic are down, cows, pigs, sheep, and a larger set of cells, they amount to about 700 tons. It's over twice. In cost, the combined less than 100 million tons. I love that he puts it in terms of weight. Our economic and our T-screen still of direct and real world, very of them left. There are about compared to 0.5 billion cattle. Only 200,000 compared to 400 investigators. 150,000 pansies in contrast to billions of humans. Humankind really has taken over the world. Biological is not the same as scarcity. As previously available, humans are constantly increasing and are likely to do. Doomsday prophecies are probably misplaced in degradation only too well. The future may see sapiens gaining control of a cornucopia of species to extinction. So sobering, much of the book is sobering. Main lessons are that we have a lot of power as a species, and we have many choices, and our choices need to look across a larger horizon than we're currently wired across. I just saw a recent a talk. I may load it up into the garden, but it's also by Dan Gilbert. It's one he did in Greece, I think, in Greece. And he explained his future self set, but across a huge span of time. The reason it's just out is that, higher evolutionarily look at in short term, for long periods of time, like look at is saying coming like in it. So from moment to moment, we're always scanning from moment to moment way for the danger. And if you do climate change, see that. It's not like a predator is coming out of the woods. So to wrap our around the idea. And I think books like these, also books humans need, them sharing our shared history, our shared concerns, and our shared. So that's what I have to say about Sapiens. I love it. I love the day I found the book. Now I have a bookshelf, and I recommend it. I just know going to read and get into book. It's essential to be top of it.
That was as the 200 ago, and I listened to it. I do books that wish list, but I have 21 lessons for the 23 on my shelf. And I agree to be the first book on the list because it is blurbs sweeping because I pulled my questions from the master. Okay, one thing of connecting this control of masses through stories that are to connect to, that's in there. How sad it was. And ancient war always make me wonder if we start with love instead of bashing down the other. It was interesting to learn the history and kind in it keeps you in why we are going to leave and believe the things we believe, do the things we do. The story, not just open your mind to the past, the possibilities of the future. So that's okay. The question is, if you had for the person, if I show that they're going, I would say about alien science, mind-blowing alternatives. And then the first, I absolutely love I have this book. So my favorite book, what section why? Of course, the first chapter stands out. The way the family tree is so easily mapped out. I always felt about human reality. The part of religion, something else I realized a few years back is it's a story of masses and make them fear the inevitable, death. And it's the beginning of the us versus them.
I agree with you. It was, but I thought that what happened. I comment that's about someone wrote this out. Like maybe even but like you might be saying about it, but like.
Okay. Excuse me. Next question was, how do you think changed your mindset at all about humans do the things they do? I love this book. Mostly it's due to inferior or breeding and only better ourselves in light of sense, observation leading to change. I think it's one audible books to have 1,000 notes. I was while you were talking about all the notes.
I just, it's sort of, that like one of those books about Sapiens.
Here's my step. Believing connects the key. Dual realities, what's real and what is not real, what is perceived to be real by the masses. And then I think it was in the very last story talks about what do we want to become?
Yeah.
Not who, but what. And I thought that was a very interesting question.
Yeah, because he does get to artificial intelligence and what we're doing with our endeavor to create machines, and a 10 out of 10 stars. This is more than 5 stars. This is like, I could give it 100 stars of this book. Yep.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's a first book. If you're going to get into some really deep reading with people, this is a very good first book to start off on. Very good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks for indulging me on my little.
I'm excited you got the book. I want the one that has all the drawings and diagrams and everything in it. I think there's a couple. Doesn't he have a couple of print versions of that?
This is a really fancy set. Yeah, it's very fancy. Yeah, and it's got the little, and it's not a box the way they used to do boxes for box set books. They used to be like really thick. This is just like folded cardboard into the thing of a box. So it's not, there's probably a more deluxe version than even this, but I'm happy. I'm really happy with it. It's really, and it's heavy, weighs like 10 pounds. It's because the paper stock is so thick. And I can't actually, I can't imagine myself actually reading the books that are in here, because like, let them sit on my shelf and listen to it again. But I'm really happy to have them on my shelf.
Okay, so I have a VHS set of Star Wars tapes like that are still in the package, because don't you dare open those.
So you wanted
to tab them up.
You wanted to talk about Atomic Habits, which I think also is an essential book.
Okay, let me pull that back up then. I have all my questions on it. I love these questions, and this is something, these questions I want to talk about for a second.
I should probably write that into a PDF and drop that into the book club circle.
Yeah, so
I'll do that.
Before I before, like a homework assignment, what are the questions you want answered in the homework assignment? Read the questions first, and then as you read through the text, you're going to remember, oh, I'm looking for this information. And I tried to teach my daughter that when she was in school. What are the questions first before you read the text? Because then you're going to be looking for something. You're going to retain more of what you read, and then you're going to be able to talk about it later. So I love these questions. So first I had to say that. And I always like the first one. What life problems are you currently working on, attempting to solve, or would like to solve prior to joining the Mastermind Book Club? And so I'm talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I'm on a mission to write my story, speak my truth, and play my game, and to expand in abundant success and love, while inspiring those around me to do the same. And I have a big business ideas and need women who play at my level. So that's where I was. Isn't it funny how things work out? So aha moments. Whenever you are unsure how to act, we look to the group to guide our behavior. Make sure you've got a good group of people to learn from. That's from the proximity principle also. And habit tracking is obvious. This is something we talk about. Keeping a journal or record of our lives is our history and allows us to learn from it. Or we can ignore it and continue to suffer the same fate over and over. So yeah, that's interesting. If I had to explain what the book was about in a couple sentences, our habits are as strong as our will to change, to make it, create it, embrace it. Change is inevitable as well as predictable, and if you're working towards it, achievable, even if it is in tiny steps. Okay. Which part of the book is my favorite? Any part where he lists links to the website where readers can download the tools he shares, because he shares some really good stuff. Um, Daily habits. And did I read this? May. Also, at being lost to when these things happen, you can change at a moment's notice. But or yoga pants, knowing it's going to be a while, because I have struggled. But setting up, do something. If I'm going to get there, have it easier for me. We don't have big goals to break down into pleasurable habits. Instead, we treat our to-do list like a ball and chain. We want to take the easy route. I want my future self to be grateful to the person I am today, who wrote the words, completed the workout, published the books, got on stage, made the movie, and I can only get there tomorrow if I put the work in today. I read the physical copy, a little more than a section a night, and it took me about a month to get through. I like having it because it's got all my tabs in it now, and I've actually written probably 4 or 5 essays about it. So having that tabbed is I like that a lot. And quotes that stood out for me: our personalities influence our experiences, but so do our attitudes. So too do our attitudes. Reward is on the other side of sacrifice. Present self sacrifices for future self. Present self is future for the habits of past self. And we don't choose our early habits, we imitate them. So that, comes back to the people around us, I think, too. So yeah, and I wrote a couple other pieces about it that I'll just link. I can link. But yeah, it
Great.
was.
I think I read it. I think I first read that book over a year ago. And when I think about, I'm happy that you talked about past self, present self, future self. But when I think about where I was a year ago or where I was 2 years ago, is totally different. Like I was in a totally different space. My mindset was different. I was working on things much more different. It loved atomics because, well, I did love it and I had a copy, but I love his story about how he like journeys. He taught his journey, how he almost died, like they did him, and I think he was dead. And then they brought him back, and he massive down. And so to do rehabilitation, he needed to break things into steps all along the way. And we often get tied up, and I coach this too. We often get tied up in this big dream that we have, like I'm gonna write a novel, or I'm gonna, win the Oscar and get, and direct this amazing movie, and then we sit in the fantasy of the big thing, but we don't pull apart all the tiny little things that we have to do every single day that feed that one big thing. And he really does a good job of laying that out and making the case for why we need to do that. And that's the mistake that we often make, is that we have these big dreams and goals, and we have this daily to-do list. And like you said, we go for the easy because there's 10 things in the list, and maybe 2 of those directly feed that one big goal, but the other 8 are easier to do. So we'll do those first because we'll feel good about ourselves at the end of the day because we got 8 things done. Oh, well, we didn't get the 2 done, but they were the 2 most important things that fed that big goal and dream. And then we do that day after, and it's not our fault, really. It's like what you said about Sapiens, that we learn, I forget how you said it, but learn a whole lot of things from society. This is why when I talk about industrialization bias, why it's such a big deal for me. That big list of 10 things comes right out of industrialization. You go through school to learn how to master the to-do list so that you can be a bigger master of the to-do list when you go work for the corporation or the big company. But that doesn't teach you anything about creating your life and creating, and breaking down all the little things that you need to do for the thing that you want to do for your life, the life you want. So we wind up just on this treadmill, and then we get to the end of our lives and we go, what happened? Why didn't I? Why didn't I write that book? Why didn't I journal every day? Why didn't I? So it's not entirely our fault, because we're trained in everywhere you look. We're trained, since industrialization, just even the stories about what it used to be like before industrialization to having industrialization influence everything across human behavior. And that's why I think these two books together, like these were the first books in my 200 book journey as well. And that's why I think the two of them together are so synergistic, that they just totally put things in perspective in a new way, in a way that is so imperative for anybody who's a creative and looking to create their own life.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of them are definitely have to be at the top of the book list. I want to say it was the third or fourth book I read, and they all went together. I think that whole first 5 or 6 of them at the booklet, they all kind of go together of preparing you, I think, for what's next down the book list. I think it's really, and yeah, what you said about it, we don't choose our earliest habits, we imitate them. And when you're, if you're growing up in a dysfunctional family, or you have an abusive parent, or you have, all sorts of, if you have food scarcity, or you have, you start imitating those habits that are forced upon you because of those situations. And then they become so ingrained in who you are, you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. It's just, that's your habit. And that takes some really deep, reflection of how do you grow past that. And again, I think these books are the way to start moving past those kinds of traumas, misunderstandings, if you want to call them, because we were all, misunderstood because we didn't have the words to say what we needed to say, and now we are. So I think everything comes around, and all these little habits, all these little things that are adding up, the serendipity of it all is very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, the patterns, the early patterning that we do, it becomes habits. And the truth is, the habits don't have to be forever. We get to take a look at those and say, that one doesn't serve me anymore, or that one never served me, really. That can happen. That happens often.
The habit of whatever you do on a daily basis is so ingrained in you, again, because they've lined up, stacked on one on top of the other. First I do this, then I do this, then I spend 15 minutes getting angry, and then I spend 20 minutes, doing nothing else and nothing else, because I've got to come down from that. So being able to put in something else before you do the thing that triggers you, or because that if you do this thing, this is how your day is going to be spent. Yeah, being able to be aware of how you are spending your time is the most important way, and how your thoughts are affecting your day.
And Atomic Habits it does give practical tools. Like, it doesn't just say you should, or you could, or this is how it works. It isn't just theoretical, it's practical. Right. He gives real practical advice about constructing new habits and how to do that. And
yeah, he's got like the habit scorecard, and yes, that was so cool. It was like, oh, I can put something in here that's, going to change the path, And that was such a wake-up call to me,
So much. But you're the mom and you don't see the growth, because the only thing you see is they just outgrew their clothes, but you don't actually see the growth. Well, just like with habits, you can't, unless you track it and measure it. It's like, a lot of people stand their child up against the wall and make a mark and say, 2.5 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old, so that they can actually see for themselves. And habits are a lot like that. And we get into them and we get into these groups, and unless we track and measure all those little things that we want towards our goals, you know, we don't see them because we live with them every day. So that's a good place for journaling. I do that in my journal. You know, how many minutes did I write? How many minutes did I meditate? Like I track that every single day. And I just wrote a piece on Medium today about my grandfather's journals. He was huge on measurements. Like he measured all kinds of stuff. His journals were just filled with numbers. It's kind of boring to read, but it made, you know, he tracked things. He tracked and measured things. And when we track and measure things, we can see change, we can see progress, we can see where we're slipping. That makes a huge difference. And he talks about that, like you said, in having a scorecard. So yeah, it's a great book. What would you give it in terms of stars?
5 out of 5.
5 out
I
of 5.
honestly, I don't think there's one book that I've read off the list that I wouldn't give 5 out of 5. Yeah, I don't think there's one book so far. They all are so good. So I'm looking forward to them all.
I'm trying not to curate any bad books onto the book list.
You're doing a great job so far.
Thank you.
And now you've got me all psyched up to get my copy of Sapiens and Amadeus. But I did get, what is that one? It's the James Cameron Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Once you see all the myths laid out across the planet, and then you see the influence and how it influences culture, it really helps you understand that it helps you understand the power of storytelling and mythology, and how modern day and how ancient myth still plays out in terms of decisions and patterns that people engage in unknowingly, unaware.
Because that's just how it's always been, because we don't choose our earliest habits, we imitate them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, I pulled it off the shelf the other day, and because I had read Flying Lead Change and then Sand Talk, and then I pulled that off and I thought, this is perfect. This is like a perfect next step of those 2 other books, because they kind of do the same, where they talk a little bit about that. Well, not so much Flying Lead Change, but Sand Talk for sure brings in all those stories. And wow, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to stop this recording here.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.